Good afternoon. Welcome to one of my webinars, Pricing for Value and Not the Statement of Advice. So thank you all for attending. We've got 25 minutes as per my calendar to get through a reasonable amount of content and hopefully motivate each and every one of you to take a few steps, which I'm going to outline today, around reviewing your current price, putting in the context of the value that you provide to your clients overall, and hopefully get some price increases across your client book as well at the same time. So my name's Dean Holmes, founder of the Wealth Network. I invest in and coach financial planning practices. And today I'm delivering this content in relation to pricing. It's recorded, as everyone would assume, most definitely. We've got some content to give to you at the end of the day. You can turn on your cameras. I will see you and smile as a result. So you're welcome to do that. We'll have some time after the 25 minutes to Q&A. Hello, Jan. Welcome. It's always fun to smile and talk to people instead of little initial boxes. So please put your cameras on if you'd like to do so. You're on mute for obvious reasons. So if the dog walks in, you can shut up. But if you've got questions at the end, please unmute yourself and we'll go through. So really what we're doing today is talking a little bit about the question of when did we last change your fees or review your fees? And frankly, the other part of that question is why did you change it? And so often we're talking about fee changes for clients, and we're in this equation of my costs went up, so your costs went up. And that doesn't necessarily feel the best from a client's perspective. And sometimes clients don't care that your cost goes up in the context of why their fees should go up. So we want to be really careful around conversations with clients simply saying my fees are up, so your fees are up, because that's not necessarily their problem in the context of this pricing. We think about the most important thing the most important reason why we are not adjusting our fees is we don't really adjust our fees because we've created more and more value for our clients over time. And this is what I want to leave us with today, is to be thinking more about the value that we're creating for clients and not simply that our costs have gone up or someone on a webinar told me that I should be charging more. I really want us to focus on what we're delivering in terms of value for clients overall. So first and foremost, no one decided to undercharge. So no one's running around the business trying to undercut their competitors or charge less when we think about it. And so a couple of things have happened as a result of us not charging the right amount of fees overall. Why do these fees drift? And so sometimes there's client creep. So we would all understand the concept where we had a particular client and going forward from that relationship, they started off as a relatively simple client and then they moved on to become a more complicated client, but we didn't actually reprice the client along that journey. And so maybe it was one, 3 or 5 years where we were working with that customer. They got more complicated, they got more wealth, and we didn't have that brave conversation in and around increasing the fees because the scope had changed with that particular client, or we didn't actually think that the scope had changed. So we want to be careful around scope creep. Our lawyers are really good at telling us or their customers or clients that a particular thing is out of scope. And we should use that as a little bit of motivation as well to make sure we're pricing advice appropriately. I don't like to tell clients that things are out of scope, but we should be brave enough to tell clients that either this particular thing we're doing for you this year is a value add and we're not going to charge for it, or we go down the path of going, this is something additional that we have to provide for you, and we're going to charge for it this time. We need to be having those brave conversations. The reason why I talk about brave conversations is some of the time, as is in that green box there, we discount our price and therefore the value in our head before we even get to a client meeting. So both when we think about increasing an existing client fee, but also the idea that we are talking to new clients, often we discount in our head before we've even got to the client and got to that client conversation overall. And so we need to be somewhat firmer and braver in relation to this. I'm going to give us a framework to actually think about our pricing and how we're creating value, but ultimately I still need you to have the conversations. And so there is a little bit of bravery involved in this. So as the title of the webinar said, is stop charging for documents and stop selling twice. So these two things I see happening all the time. And so you can nod or give me a thumbs up in a particular emoji if you say the following sentences to clients, which is, we have to charge you for an SOA. Clients don't really understand the concept of a statement of advice. They never know they were getting one. They never wanted one in the first place. They want the outcome or the time that you spend with them explaining what advice you're going to give them. They don't specifically rock up to your office wanting an SOA. When you attach your price to the worst document in the world, which is the statement of advice, they won't enjoy the experience. Just like there are thousands and thousands of wills that are unsigned, it's not the clients didn't want to protect their family. It's that document was so confusing when the lawyer put it in front of them to for the client to then check everything. They get confused by those documents and therefore don't take action. So don't attach your price to the worst document in the world. And more specifically than that, don't make it the client's problem that you have to do an SOA, or I have to give you this ROA, or I have to give you the FSG. The clients don't really understand why, and we need to move away from this. So the reason why we need to pull away from these documents is that when we're attaching that price to the document as opposed to attaching the price to the value and service that we're going to provide the client over the next 12 months. Second thing that I've got on this slide about stop selling twice when we think about pricing and value is that advisors often work with a client in the 12-month period in two stages. And so what can happen is that the advisor will get into that front-end client relationship and actually sell that SOA process. So they sell the client the SOA. The client says, yes, I'd love to work with you. I'd love to pay you the $5,000 for you to produce the advice. And then what happens in addition to that is that when you're presenting the statement of advice at that point in time, advisors are then presenting an ongoing service agreement, or will manage your capital for you and take responsibility for that. And here's the ongoing fee. And the clients may be surprised by that fact. Okay. And so what you're having to do at that point in time is actually resell the value of your entire advice journey and process working together for a second time, because you just did it earlier on in the client interaction. And so what I want to give you a different perspective is actually charging the client for the 12 months worth of deliverables, not simply the statement of advice and not simply initial work and then ongoing work. Just work out the right price for the client to work with you for the next 12 months. And the client receives unlimited SOAs through that process, because the SOA is our obligation for our compliance department. It's less about the client. And so why would we restrict the client in terms of what their journey and advice will be? So what I've got in the box and what I'm going to talk to you through today is the framework of trying to name our service and product with clients. So we've actually got something we can point to as to what the journey will be, and therefore the value that you create for clients. And then what the price will be simply for the year of service, not trying to break it up into parts that require you to sell twice. It's twice the work, and often for a lesser benefit, because you have to re-explain things to clients, which then leads to more confusion. So what I want to think about with everyone today, and everyone loves a good idea, and we all go to conferences and get ideas. And so first and foremost, my first mantra is don't rehearse things, don't try new things on grand final day, because you're bound to stuff it up. And so the reality is, when you go to a conference or you hear me speaking, you go into the next client meeting trying to increase the fees. And what I'm giving you today is a framework so that you can actually think about it beforehand, practice it beforehand so that you've got something that you can work with. Practice it with your wife, your paraplanner, your husband, the CSO. It doesn't actually matter who you practice these conversations with, but the fact is that we should have them more frequently internally, so that when we do turn around and have a conversation with clients, it's much easier. So this is a framework for thinking about a client fees and then obviously thinking about increasing those over time. So I do like the idea of first and foremost the recap. So the recap is not about telling the client their investment performance for the last 12 months. So sometimes we have an annual review and we focus the annual review on telling the client what percentage return their superannuation made. Now, frankly, they should already know. They likely know because they've received the paperwork or quarterly reports from you and things like that. So the recap is not about how well you've done in your performance. The recap is looking at the last 12 months and actually highlighting the work and problems that we solved over that previous 12 months. So that's talking about the service, how often we met, talking about the decisions that we made. It might be the tax savings or investment savings that we made over the time. They're true achievements. The phone calls, the questions about should I do this and should I do that. So the idea of getting into a client room meeting and doing a recap is really powerful so that the clients know what you've actually helped them with over the last 12 months, because they will forget. And it's your job to, in this concept of review and then forecasting what we're doing going forward, it's your job to remind the client of all the hard work that we've both done in that journey. Now, the second element of this is the reframe around what is it going to be like to work with us for the next 12 months? And this is where you're rescoping the work potentially, and where you're actually having the elements of saying, over the next 12 months, this is what we're going to achieve. This is what we're going to do. And therefore, this is what the investment is to work with us for the next 12 months. Okay. So that's an investment in your financial future. And if you delete the word price and put the word investment, it changes it ever so slightly. But this is the cost of the advice going forward. Okay. I don't mind whether you're a fixed fee, a percentage-based fee, or a combination of those three. It doesn't actually matter in terms of what the client, it's just what you tell the client. All of your clients love how you charge your fees because they love you. Okay, so it doesn't, if you currently do fixed fees, keep doing fixed fees. If you're currently doing any other model, keep doing the model, because it's less about the model and how confidently you articulate it and that the clients like you at the end of the day. So when you have your model, you just don't do hourly as I've got down here, because hourly rates is all about timesheets and lawyers, and we're trying to get away from that most definitely. So when we know what the repricing is of the clients, we have to have that particular brave conversation. So we're recapping the last 12 months, we're reframing what it's going to be like to work with us for the next 12 months, and then we're repricing as we go through. What are we doing when we're repricing? We're saying the number pretty confidently because we've done the work and we know it's the right number first and foremost. And then we're staying quiet. Now, some people will say this is a sales strategy of staying quiet as part of the conversation. But the way I've convinced myself that this is okay is that tell yourself that it's appropriate that you give your clients an appropriate amount of time for them to consider what you just said. Okay, so you're introducing something new. You're introducing what the plan is going to be for the next 12 months to work with you. And then secondly, you've changed the price. You've obviously increased it, and it may be a significant increase. And so you have to give the clients that appropriate amount of time to make that assessment. And if you keep talking, what do you want the client to do? Listen to you or think about the price that you've said? Because there's no further information you can give to the client after you tell them the price. It's going to help them decide. If you think it was valuable, you should have said it before the price. Okay, so choose the amount of time that you would like to stay silent for. Bite your tongue, lick the top of the roof of your mouth with your tongue if you need to. Both of those things equally distract you. The client doesn't know it, and you're giving that small amount of time for them to make a decision. And this could be 20, even if it's 20 seconds or 30 seconds, which it won't be, that's not that much time at the end of the day for the purpose of allowing the clients to think about the situation. So that's a brief framework that you can run within your practice in and around having these conversations. But before we increase the price, we've got to have this element, which is the workbooks that I'm about to show you. We have to have done the work to think about what our program is or our deliverables to the client, what the service will be as a result of those programs, and then what the price should be at the end of the day. Most of us across our client book are not charging the right fees for our clients. Some of our clients could be overpaying for what they're receiving. Now, maybe you need to increase the service to those clients to match the fee. Some of the clients are definitely not paying enough and they're overusing the service. And it's not their fault that they're calling you too often. It's your fault because you either haven't put the price up or set reasonable expectations on your time. Both of those are the advisor's responsibility when it comes to working with clients. So I've built a few worksheets that I'm going to talk you through elements of this now, and then I've got them available for everyone to have and download. You can download and write it with paper if you'd like to, or you can put the whole thing into your favorite AI chatbot and actually get it to work through these questions with you as well. Either one is fine from my perspective. So when I think about reframing that next 12 months of service, what I want each business to have that I work with is 3 tiers of service and actually a physical name to your product that you work with. So this particular one right down the bottom, it's quite small on your screen, but it's the financial foundation. So it's the first element of making sure that we've got a particular tier of our service. So naming our product is really key because then we can point to it and we can confidently tell clients what it is. When we start a conversation with, oh, Mr. and Mrs. Client, you're eligible for our financial foundations program, and this is what our financial foundations program looks like, it already sounds more professional than we're going to write you an SOA that I have to charge you for. Okay, so we name it so that we can talk to it. So what we want to do is have a name that's relevant for your business, take your business name and put something else at the end. It's pretty quick and easy to do. You do have to work out who this is for as part of your deliverables. So is it for your younger clients, your SME business owners or high net worth clients? And I want you to think about what's the outcome that you help them with each and every 12 months. Okay. So the reason why we're trying to work on sound bites of each of these elements of what it's like is we actually, as a result of that, get a really good script in our head that we can talk to clients at any point in time. The reason why some advisors have what seems like a polished presentation is that they've thought about it beforehand, named some things, and then they're able to talk to that on an ongoing basis. So my first requirement for you is to have some tiers of service and have a service deliverable off the back of it. And what you do as a result of naming this financial foundations program, the second thing we do is we work out what we deliver to the clients over a 12-month period as a result. Now, this is not ongoing service agreement compliance. So we're not telling clients that they get newsletters. We're not telling clients that they have unlimited access to your advisor because that's not true anyway. So what we actually want to be clear on in filling out some or all of these boxes is being really clear about what do we give the client as their outcome. What do you want the deliverable to be? We catch up twice a year. We catch up once a year. However you want the deliverable, you need to be clear on that in terms of the formalities of annual reviews, but also the ad hoc work that you might do. And eventually we're going to work on what is an appropriate annual fee or range of annual fees for that particular offering overall. And then the third thing we need to have a bit more of a clarity on is the cost to serve each and every one of these 3 tiers that I want you to work on, and also get comfortable with the fact that it's okay for your business to make profit and reinvest that profit over time. So a couple of questions that you have to ask yourself is being really clear on what does it cost you to serve that tier in terms of those 3 tiers. Even your lowest tier clients can be profitable if you've done the right thinking in terms of what you deliver, but also what they take of your time. Your team's time is also really important to consider in this. Your team probably talks to those lower tier clients more than what you realize. And so getting a really good understanding of this lower level of service or the highest level, and then how frequently your teams have those conversations. So if we do this work and thinking about the clients, we've got some clarity as a result of the deliverables in terms of our proven process that we might talk to clients about. We've got some clarity as to what the deliverables and service rhythms are as a result of that. And then thirdly, we get some clarity as to what we should be charging for that particular service offering. Now, when I do repricings for businesses of existing client books, we also bring in a couple of other elements which talks to the personality of the client, because you may have clients that are very detailed orientated and want to talk to you more, and you may have clients that are less detailed orientated and really happy to delegate more of the work. And so if you think about your pricing process with existing clients, is that you may have a complexity ratio for the clients. So the engineers have to pay more because they ask more questions. That's absolutely fair and reasonable. Whereas you may have a marketing executive who asks less questions. And so if they're asking less questions, they're asking less of your time and expertise, and they are allowing you to delegate more. So when we think about our whole business, we are bringing those elements in as well. It is really important as we go through in terms of the pricing elements of what we do, is that it is entirely appropriate and required that the business makes a profit on each and every client within the business. And so the reason why it's important that each and every client makes a profit is we need that profit to allow it to be carried forward to reinvest in the business going forward. And so the profit itself it should never be a dirty word, and clients should be actually happy that your business is profitable, and that profit allows you to hire new staff, invest in technology, and grow for the future. They're not looking to work with a business that is not charging enough. Okay, so we need to get confident around our profitability numbers. I talk about, maybe the next webinar I'm doing is talking about heading towards the 40% EBIT. That's the right profitability level to reward the shareholders for where they want to be. And the final thing that I've got in terms of the worksheets is turning this work into a explanation for each and every one of your client tiers as to what the story will be. So if I go back to that reframing part of the slide before, is I really want us to be clear that we can turn all the complexity of what we do into one or two sentences for your client, so that they know they're in the right tier and they're really clear on what they want to do with you going forward. And so if we have a particular blurb for each and every one of our 3 service offerings, it's going to help us have those right conversations with clients overall. I want you to rehearse it, of course. I talk about that practicing before we jump into the grand final day. So I heard the Blue Baggers have made the finals as well. So that's very good. Looking at you, Johnny. So make sure we're rehearsing in terms of what's going on in terms of practicing what we preach, first and foremost. So with your colleagues, back and forth practicing those things. And also on top of that, you can definitely deal with some of those objections as well in and around those fees. So by doing that, we get a greater focus overall on the value of what we provide from an advice perspective. So finally, just in terms of what I'm giving to each and every attendee in terms of what we've got, is I've got this document which will get across to you when you click the link, which I'll share in a moment. Franz is putting it in the chat. Thank you, Franz. So first and foremost, this is the elements of the workbook that I want to take you through. And firstly, as I've been hinted, these are what I want you to do in terms of having those repricing conversations with clients, but also a not to do list is really cool. So we've talked about grand final day. We're not leading with the price without talking about the history and the future of working together. We want to make sure that we're not in this idea of discounting. I don't discount what we do. We create a huge amount of value, and we should be confident with that. And we don't really want to focus on the costs, as I started at the beginning of the conversation. It's not the right footing in terms of a long-term value creating relationship that we focus on the fact that Office 365's gone up or my PI's gone up. And so therefore you should need to pay more as part of that relationship. So here's the link for everyone that wants to grab it. It's in the chat of the thing. If you're got your mobile phone handy and want to use the QR code, you can do that as well. You've got to do pop your details in, and then it will take you straight to this other page for you to grab that content and work through it. Ideas are nothing without execution. And so really where you go from here is having a go at working through, answering some or all of the questions that I've put in the workbook in terms of some of the ideas. The best thing that we've done is worked on naming and structuring our service offerings so that we can talk to it in terms of what the deliverables are for the clients overall. And then frankly, practicing and having those brave conversations with clients to increase those fees. Clients are open to those conversations, and across the businesses that we've gone through these price increases, we've obviously had really good success in terms of getting the prices up. That obviously flows straight to the bottom line for those business owners on the call. Increased prices go straight to profit beyond the costs, but also it has an impact on the valuation of the businesses as well, as we know. So that hyperlink and website will take you through to this particular page of my webinar. Fill out the details, you get the form. We will have the video on there as well. Obviously, it can't be on there today, but it will be on there tonight. So 3 webinars that are coming up. So I'm doing this monthly for those that would like to continue to attend. We will email you these as well. But next month, we're doing a webinar, which is Pathway to 40% EBIT. That is the right profit ratio to focus on your business. Can't always be there because you can't hire half a human, but we can make sure that we're heading towards that over time. I will do an AI related update in terms of things we're talking about with practices. I did notice there was a ton of AI note-taking people that joined. I must say that the AI that joins most meetings is definitely more on time than the client, so that's great. And finally, in November, we'll do a webinar around ideal clients in terms of identifying and also working a little bit on advisor capacity, so we make sure that the business is bringing on the right total number of clients for the business. So everyone can register for one or all of those. So that's it for me today in terms of the ideas. I'm intentionally keeping these relatively punchy so that you can get a couple of ideas, but obviously also take these and go and do some work. So I'll end the formalities here. Thank you very much for attending. If you do have any questions, you're more than welcome to hang around and have a chat on those issues for the next 10 or 15 minutes. Thanks for joining, and see you next month.